The segment started like any other. Tucker Carlson sat under the cool lights of his set, eyebrows raised, half grinning with that mix of curiosity and skepticism he'd perfected over the years. The Chiron read, Obama, Epstein, and a secret DC location? Tonight's guest, Tucker began, is someone who's not afraid to break ranks. Comedian, political commentator, and host of The Jimmy Dore Show, Jimmy Dore joins us now with what I can only describe as a wild claim. Jimmy, sitting via satellite with his signature smirk and salt and pepper goatee, leaned toward the camera. Tucker, let me just say, this isn't something I wanted to believe either. But after what I uncovered, man, it makes the Clintons look like choir boys. Tucker blinked. All right, hit me. Jimmy didn't waste time. Between 2014 and 2016, I've been told, by two separate sources inside the intelligence community, that Barack Obama was routinely meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, not just once, weekly, every Thursday, same address, a brownstone in D.C. tied to an Epstein-owned trust. The studio went silent. Tucker tilted his head. During his presidency? Yup, Jimmy nodded. While Obama was giving speeches on transparency and justice, he was ducking into a townhouse guarded by Secret Service, under the radar, and spending hours with Epstein. There's no visitor log, no record, but the neighbors remember, and there's one internal memo I've seen that proves this wasn't accidental. Tucker didn't interrupt. Not yet. Jimmy leaned in again. This wasn't just some random social call. These meetings, they were strategic. Names were dropped. Deals were made. And I'm telling you, it connects to the post-presidency Netflix deal, Wall Street back-channeling, and why half of D.C. stays silent. Tucker finally spoke, quietly. You're saying the Obama legacy is tied to Epstein? Jimmy just smiled. I'm saying the cover-up is the legacy. Cut to commercial. Within minutes, Obama-Epstein Thursdays and Jimmy Dore began trending across Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. The comment section exploded. Theories began flying. But this was just the start. After the break, Tucker returned looking visibly disturbed, not angry, curious, deeply curious. The kind of look that said, this just became bigger than a segment. Back with us is Jimmy Dore, Tucker said, and, apparently, he brought something. Jimmy nodded, holding up a blurred piece of paper. This is a copy of an internal scheduling memo. It came from someone inside DHS. I can't show you the full document. I'd be putting people in danger. But what matters is what's on line 4. Tucker squinted. What's on line 4? Jimmy read aloud. 3 p.m. POTUS transport. FOG05. Non-standard detail. Visitor status. Confidential. Location. CL Brownstone. Tucker raised an eyebrow. CL. Code for Clinton land, Jimmy said. That's how certain assets referred to Epstein's inner circle. It's buried in the routing notes. Cross-referenced with old Secret Service logs, it matches a narrow 3-hour block that appears 28 Thursdays in a row. Same window, no press pool, no log. Tucker sat back. Okay, but this is still circumstantial. Are we saying Barack Obama was sneaking away from the White House to meet Epstein every week? Yes, Jimmy replied without hesitation. And you know what else happened during that window? The 2015 tech regulation rollback, the private prison investment summit, the student loan refinancing freeze. All policy moves that, magically, benefited donors connected to Epstein's known associates. Tucker interrupted. That's a hell of a connection. Jimmy leaned in. It's not just a connection, it's a pattern. The brownstone meetings, the off-books motorcade, and the sudden emergence of Obama's post-presidency corporate deals, Netflix, Spotify, real estate holdings, just months after those meetings ended. It's like Epstein was the middleman for the next phase of Obama Inc. Tucker stared, stunned. Do you think the media knew? Jimmy laughed. Tucker, they helped cover it up. That was the moment the broadcast feed spiked in viewership. Across platforms, the phrase Obama's brownstone meetings began trending. Screenshots of the memo, redacted and blurry, were plastered across Instagram, YouTube, and fringe Telegram groups. The mainstream media ignored it. But Tucker's viewers didn't. And Jimmy wasn't done yet. Tucker returned from the break with a colder expression. The usual fire in his delivery gave way to something more controlled, like he realized they were no longer in the realm of speculation. They were now deep in the swamp. Back with Jimmy Dore, he said, you mentioned names. That Epstein may have been brokering deals, not just with Obama, but on behalf of other powerful figures. Can you be more specific? Jimmy nodded. I've got 2 words for you, Tucker. Shadow manifest. Tucker blinked. What's that? It's an unofficial ledger. I saw it once, years ago. A decrypted index of names tied to Epstein's travel operation. Think of it as a redacted flight log, but not for flights, for meetings. On island, off island, private jet, brownstone, basement in Tribeca, everything. Tucker leaned forward. And Barack Obama's name was on it? Jimmy paused for dramatic effect. Not his name, his code name. He held up a yellowing printout, the text half faded. Column E, row 23, Barry Hawk, priority guest, full clearance, repeat sessions approved. That's the line, Tucker muttered. Barry Hawk. That was Obama's alias in multiple communications, Jimmy said. I confirmed it with a former cybersecurity contractor who worked in private surveillance during the early 2010s. He'd seen it before, in routing emails, encrypted RSVPs, and masked flight plans, all tied to Epstein's network. The audience watching at home? Locked in. YouTube exploded. Twitter was ablaze. TikTok teens were lip-syncing Barry Hawk over drone footage of luxury islands and ominous piano music. And then Jimmy dropped another bomb. The timing lines up with Obama's sudden pivot on surveillance laws. He had just promised to dial back warrantless spying, then reverse course. Guess what day that decision was made? Thursday, after one of the brownstone visits. Tucker whispered, So you're saying Epstein wasn't just a blackmailer or pervert, he was a broker. And Obama may have been a client? Jimmy leaned into the camera. I'm saying, the myth of clean politics died in that brownstone. Obama didn't just sell hope, he sold access. Tucker sat back in his chair. No words. Just the sound of an audience watching history unravel, whether real or imagined. One impossible claim at a time. The next segment opened with Tucker sitting completely still, arms folded, like he was weighing the risk of even continuing. You mentioned the media may have helped cover this up, Tucker said cautiously. Are we talking passive omission or active involvement? Jimmy Dore didn't flinch. Oh, active, very active. I've spoken to 2 former producers, one from CNN, one from MSNBC, who were told explicitly by their higher-ups that any reference to Obama's relationship with Epstein was off-limits. Kill the story, bury the guest, change the topic. Tucker raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? The usual nonsense, Jimmy said. Editorial standards, lack of verification. But one of those stories had photos. One had time-stamped security schedules. You know what happened to the journalist who tried to push it forward? Tucker leaned in. Jimmy pulled out a file. Her name was Melinda Ray, freelance reporter. She filed a FOIA request in 2019 after seeing some strange gaps in Obama's post-presidency Secret Service logs. 6 weeks later, gone. No digital footprint, no forwarding address. Even her LinkedIn vanished. Tucker tilted his head. You think something happened to her? I think, Jimmy said slowly, the system has learned how to silence without blood. You don't have to kill anyone. Just erase their voice. A chilling silence hung over the studio. Jimmy continued. And let me be clear, this isn't just about one president. Epstein's list, it's bipartisan. But Obama was the face of transparency, the guy who was supposed to be different. So when he's in the same room as Epstein, week after week, what does that say about everything? Tucker sat back. It says, the illusion's worse than the lie. At that point, the segment took on a life of its own online. TikTok was flooded with theories about Melinda Ray. Some users even claimed to have found old posts and cached pages tied to her by digging into obscure web archives. Conspiracy forums blew up, and through it all, Jimmy remained calm. They didn't just erase the logs, they erased the people who noticed. The words didn't just hang in the air, they echoed. Tucker Carlson opened the final segment with a slow breath. There's a reason this isn't on CNN, he said. There's a reason fact-checkers will pretend this never aired. But let's finish this story. Jimmy Dore leaned forward, voice steady. It all comes down to one question, Tucker. Why would a sitting president risk his legacy and possibly his freedom to meet with a man like Jeffrey Epstein? Tucker offered nothing. He just waited. Jimmy continued. Because Epstein was more than a predator. He was an asset, a political broker. He wasn't collecting secrets. He was trading them. Obama didn't meet with Epstein because he was naive. He did it because he understood the game. Tucker finally asked, What game? Jimmy held up his fingers and counted. Access, leverage, immunity. That's the triangle. Epstein had dirt on everyone, and that made him powerful. Obama needed allies in finance, tech, even entertainment. The easiest way to align those industries? Sit across from the one guy who had his hooks in all of them. Tucker blinked. You're saying Obama's post-presidency success, the speaking gigs, the streaming deals, the foundation money, all seeded during those meetings, Jimmy finished. Obama's Netflix contract, negotiated with people 2 degrees from Epstein, the real estate deals, funded by a hedge firm that used to co-own property in the Virgin Islands. Everything that looks polished on the surface is stitched together with shadows underneath. Tucker leaned back. So what now? Jimmy sighed. They'll call us crazy. They'll say it's a hoax. But people will remember. They'll remember the phrase Barry Hawk. They'll remember the brownstone. And some of them will dig. And they did. By morning, Barry Hawk trended on X. Forums across the web dissected every Obama appearance between 2014 to 2016, comparing timelines. YouTubers posted frame-by-frame analyses of old motorcade routes in D.C. A clip of Tucker's stunned silence looped into a meme with the caption, "When the guest brings more truth than Congress." In a closing monologue, Tucker addressed the audience. This show wasn't about smearing a man. It was about pulling the curtain back. We don't know everything. But what we do know, no one in power is untouched, not even the ones we once believed were different. And as the screen faded to black, a final message appeared. This is a fictional account, but the feeling it gives you? That's real.